Angola is a large country located on the southwest coast of Africa. It is bordered by Namibia to the south, the Democratic Republic of the Congo to the north, Zambia to the east, and the Atlantic Ocean to the west. Today, Angola is known for its rich natural resources, especially oil and diamonds, and for its diverse culture and music. However, the story of Angola's history is long and full of struggle. Over the centuries, the land and its people have gone through powerful kingdoms, foreign rule, slavery, wars, and eventually independence. The history of Angola is a journey from ancient African civilizations to a modern nation that is still healing and rebuilding. Long before Europeans arrived, Angola was home to many African peoples who had their own traditions, cultures, and systems of government. Thousands of years ago, small groups of hunter-gatherers lived in the region. Later, around 2,000 years ago, Bantu-speaking peoples migrated from Central Africa into Angola. These people brought new skills such as farming, metalworking, and the ability to organize large communities. As they settled across the land, they created powerful kingdoms and societies. One of the most important early states was the Kingdom of Congo, which began around the 14th century in the northern part of what is now Angola. The Congo Kingdom was highly organized, with a capital city called Mbanza Congo and a ruler known as the Manikongo. The people of Congo traded salt, copper, ivory, and textiles with neighboring regions and built a strong and wealthy society. To the south of the Kingdom of Congo was the Kingdom of Ndongo, which was also a strong and influential African state. The ruler of Ndongo was called the Ngola, and this title is where the modern name Angola came from. In the central and eastern regions, there were other important kingdoms such as Matamba and Lunda. These kingdoms had their own systems of leadership and trade and often interacted with one another. The people of these regions lived by farming, hunting, and trading. They created iron tools, grew crops such as millet and beans, and developed local crafts. These societies were not isolated or primitive. They had complex political systems and rich cultures long before any Europeans set foot on their land. The first Europeans to arrive in Angola were the Portuguese. In 1483, the Portuguese explorer Diogo Cao reached the mouth of the Congo River while searching for trade routes and opportunities for Portugal to expand its influence. The Portuguese soon made contact with the Kingdom of Congo and began to trade with them. At first, relations between the Congo people and the Portuguese were peaceful and mutually beneficial. The Portuguese traded European goods such as cloth, metal tools, and firearms for African products like ivory, copper, and slaves. The King of Congo, known as Afonso I after his conversion to Christianity, established friendly relations with Portugal and even sent some of his sons to study in Europe. Churches and schools were built, and the two nations exchanged knowledge. However, this early friendship did not last. The Portuguese were not only interested in trade, they also wanted power and wealth. Over time, they became more focused on capturing and selling enslaved Africans. The demand for slave labor grew quickly, especially after Portugal began colonizing Brazil. Angola became one of the main sources of enslaved Africans sent across the Atlantic Ocean. Many people were captured through wars or raids and forced onto ships bound for the Americas. Historians estimate that between 4 and 5 million Africans were taken from Angola during the centuries of the slave trade. Families were torn apart, and whole communities were destroyed. This dark period had a deep and lasting impact on Angola's population and society. In the 1600s, the Portuguese began to expand their control inside Angola, moving from the coast toward the interior. They established Luanda in 1575, which became an important port for the slave trade. As the Portuguese pushed inland, they met resistance from African kingdoms that wanted to defend their freedom and land. One of the most famous leaders in this struggle was Queen Nzinga Mbande. She ruled over the kingdoms of Ndongo and Matamba, and became known for her intelligence, courage, and diplomatic skills. Queen Nzinga fought against Portuguese invasion for more than 30 years. She formed alliances with other African leaders and even with European rivals of Portugal, such as the Dutch, to protect her people. She also worked to free enslaved Africans and create a safe place for refugees. Her leadership and resistance made her one of the most respected and admired figures in Angolan history, and she remains a national hero today. Despite resistance, the Portuguese eventually took control of most of Angola. By the late 1800s, during the period known as the Scramble for Africa, European powers divided Africa among themselves. Portugal claimed Angola as one of its colonies. Portuguese rule became more formal and harsh. The Portuguese government and settlers took over large areas of land for farming, mining, and business. Many Angolans were forced to work on plantations and in mines for little or no pay. This system of forced labor was cruel and exploited the African population. The Portuguese also imposed their culture, language, and religion on the people. Africans were expected to speak Portuguese, follow European customs, and accept the authority of Portugal. Only a small number of Africans, known as assimilados, could become Portuguese citizens if they gave up their own traditions completely. This created deep divisions between the Portuguese, the assimilated Africans, and the rest of the native population. Throughout the 1900s, the desire for freedom and equality grew stronger in Angola. The colonial government continued to exploit Angola's natural resources, such as rubber, coffee, and later oil, while most Angolans lived in poverty. Education and political rights were limited, and any form of protest was punished severely. Inspired by other African countries gaining independence, Angolan leaders began organizing nationalist movements. These groups wanted to end Portuguese rule and build an independent nation. The struggle for independence began in 1961, when a large uprising took place in northern Angola. The Portuguese army responded brutally, killing tens of thousands of people. This marked the beginning of the long and violent Angolan War of Independence. During the war, several liberation movements emerged. The three main ones were the MPLA, Popular Movement for the Liberation of Angola, led by Agostinho Neto, the FNLA, National Front for the Liberation of Angola, led by Holden Roberto, and UNITA, National Union for the Total Independence of Angola, led by Jonas Savimbi. Each group had different supporters and ideologies. The MPLA was supported by the Soviet Union and Cuba and was strongest in the cities. The FNLA and UNITA were supported by the United States and neighboring countries like Zaire and South Africa. For more than a decade, these groups fought against the Portuguese army in difficult conditions. Thousands of lives were lost, and many villages were destroyed. In 1974, a revolution in Portugal overthrew its dictatorship, and the new Portuguese government decided to end its wars in Africa. This opened the door for Angola's independence. On November 11, 1975, Angola finally became independent. The MPLA declared itself the new government, and Agostinho Neto became the country's first president. However, peace did not come. The three liberation movements quickly turned against each other in a fierce struggle for power. This conflict became one of the longest civil wars in African history. The Angolan Civil War lasted from 1975 until 2002. It was not only a fight between Angolans, but also a battlefield of the Cold War between the Soviet Union and the United States. The MPLA received support from Cuba and the Soviet Union, while UNITA and FNLA were supported by the United States, South Africa, and Zaire. The war caused enormous suffering. Millions of people were forced to flee their homes, and many were killed or injured. The country's infrastructure was destroyed, and landmines made large areas unsafe. In 1979, President Agostinho Neto died and was replaced by José Eduardo dos Santos, who remained in power for almost 40 years. Several peace agreements were attempted in the 1990s, but the fighting always restarted. It was only in 2002, after the death of UNITA's leader Jonas Savimbi, that the war finally ended. A peace agreement was signed, and the country began to rebuild. After the war ended, Angola entered a new period of peace and reconstruction. The government focused on rebuilding roads, schools, hospitals, and houses. The country's oil and diamond industries brought in large amounts of money, making Angola one of the richest countries in Africa in terms of natural resources. However, much of this wealth did not reach ordinary people. Corruption and inequality became major problems. A small number of people, especially those close to the government, became very rich, while most Angolans continued to live in poverty. Despite this, Angola made progress in rebuilding its economy and infrastructure. Cities like Luanda grew quickly, and the country attracted foreign investment. In 2017, João Lourenço became the new president, replacing José Eduardo dos Santos. Lourenço promised to fight corruption, improve government transparency, and create more opportunities for all citizens. Some progress has been made, but challenges remain. Angola still struggles with poverty, unemployment, and a heavy dependence on oil exports. The government is trying to diversify the economy by investing in agriculture, manufacturing, and tourism. Today, Angola is a country at peace, but its history continues to shape its future. The story of Angola is one of courage and resilience. Its people have survived centuries of hardship, from the slave trade to colonization, from independence struggles to civil war. Despite the difficulties, Angolans have shown great strength and determination to rebuild their nation. They are proud of their culture, their heroes like Queen Nzinga, and their long fight for freedom. Angola's journey teaches an important lesson about perseverance, unity, and hope. The country still faces many challenges, but it has the potential to create a better and more equal future for all its people.